Funcionando. Okay, I think that's very intense. 3 presentations, super dense and intense. So we have 20 minutes of 20 or half an hour, depends on how long people can stand. Yeah, so I would open the discussion. There are questions, comments? Please don't make me start the question. No?
I'm curious about this, why these people call this real energy and this other energy not real. It's something related with night and day and batteries, or why? I would like to understand a bit better this, why they call it like that.
Should we collect some more questions and then respond?
If there are, yes. Yep.
Well, I have 2 questions. One is for Professor Becker, and the other one is for the 3 of you. So I'm very curious when you mentioned the dynamic nature of the MEC complex. And I was wondering if you've seen or if you've found around conflicts of labor related to the organic composition of capital, so to the increased or non-increased use of technology in coal mines and power thermal plants. And then I had a general question, because I found your research very interesting, the 3 of you, and I was wondering if you found across any aspects of political alliances that shocked you. So you mentioned having environmentalist groups working with farmers. I wonder what the unions might do, what happened with the caste system and subaltern groups, these kind of things.
One more, and then we have a second round with Sophia and Joe.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much to the 3 of you. So maybe I will take one, and then if we have time, I will give the others later. So I wanted to ask Xavier, when you speak about compensation mechanisms as a part of the framework, if I remember well, I would like to know what different compensation mechanisms have taken place in Galicia, and if there are several, and yes. So yes, it's really specific, and then I will have more for you to ask.
Okay. So I suggest you to answer these 3. Sorry?
The question is relating compensation mechanisms within the Galician cases of 1 mile projects. I was asking Xavier what are the different compensation mechanisms that have been done, that have happened, or even maybe some ideas that you may have about.
Okay. I suggest you answer, and then we have other rounds.
Okay, should I start? Yeah, you start. Yeah. Okay. So the first question is about the real versus fake. So for the farmers and the other villagers, it was about what is available throughout the day. So solar energy is often not available throughout the day, throughout the year. Sometimes you have availability of energy, but then in other seasons, in other times, it's not available for you. Whereas the conventional energy is all available throughout the day for all kind of purpose. You can use it whenever you want, which was not the case for the solar energy in this particular case. So they argued that this is not the real energy, which is not available, so it is of little use. It's almost like a fake energy, which is not there when we need it. The second question is about the alliances. This exercise was in itself a very interesting experiment of alliance making. You can see Oxfam India, Greenpeace, Kalprovix, and many others came together. And some of these groups, they also organize a network which is called as Development Alternatives. So they talk about alternative models of development. So, but when you analyze them like this, again, they have very different origins. Like Oxfam India and Greenpeace are more international in nature in terms of like the origin and in operation, whereas some others are more local and more specific. Some of them have more environmental background and a longer environmental background, whereas others are emerging in the context of changing energy scenarios. So some of them are more focused on energy, some of them are more focused on environment. Interestingly, I have not found like more people science movement kind of thing as very much part of this. Like there are some, but they are like largely not part of this alliance. So you can also see a more like neoliberal kind of alliance which is being formed, but at the same time it's not that simple to completely put them under this one blanket. So like there are interesting conflicts, but at the same time on the name of environment, diverse actors are coming together to rethink the idea of development and making energy access possible for everyone.
Yes, so on the dynamism of the MEC and the conflicts of labour around increased use and decrease of technology. In the coal industry, I'm not quite sure, but what there has been kind of protests over, or certainly resistance to, is the idea of the coal industry potentially declining in jobs, and the renewable energy industry, which doesn't create jobs in the same way, no matter what certain people might tell you with the best will in the world. Renewable energy is quite a specialised, well, let's be specific. So wind and solar PV is quite a specialised industry when it comes to manufacturing. So there might be, there'll be kind of a smaller number of specialised jobs, quite technical ones around, for instance, maintenance of the projects, but most of the labour in solar PV and wind farms, at least at the large scale, are in the 2 years or roughly 2 years that it takes to build the site, and that does create quite a lot of jobs. But then those jobs tail off after the site has been built. And this was now some years ago, but I visited a number of solar PV plants that were under construction, and it was all quite hunky-dory when it was all very positive when it was being constructed, but then it was clear that within 3 months the work would dry up because the site had been built. So then there was attempts to kind of create additional jobs like cleaning the panels, or providing, say, food or transport to the smaller skeleton crew of engineers who'd be maintaining the site. But that doesn't necessarily provide jobs in the same way that the coal industry might. But that said, the jobs in the renewable energy industry aren't necessarily in the same place as the coal industry anyway. So there's the kind of tensions that are taking place in labour are quite often focused around those things, and also that those who are skilled in, say, coal mining or working in coal-fired power plants will not necessarily have kind of transferable skills to be very specialised in renewable energy.
Two questions. The first one, I would like to say that the wind development process in Galicia, we can divide it into stages. In the first one, the process was the development process happened in peace. There isn't struggles, demonstrations against this process, but in the second one, they happened. Why? This is the question. Why? And I say also that 90% of the power installed so far was installed in the first stage. Okay. 90% of the total wind power installed was made in the first stage. And in the second stage, only 10%, more or less, but many social movements against this process. How to explain it and how to understand that this kind of actors are participating in that. So I think that there isn't one only reason, but I can share several of them. The first one is that the mountains, the places where the places far from village and populated areas are full of turbines, you know, and now the wind farms are coming to the places where people are living. This is one reason. The second one is that the planification process in Galicia happened in the year of 1997. 1997, you know, 25 years ago. And now the Galician government is letting promoters to place wind farms in plots that weren't considered in the planification 25 years ago. So this change is happening without a real participation process in the planification stage. Because, you know, to decide, because in here the councils doesn't participate in the planification process. It's not a local process, it's a central regional process, and this process happened 25 years ago, but now we are suffering the consequence of new changes in this planification framework without public participation, because the Galician government use other mechanisms that doesn't allow public participation to change it. So this also generated opposition to the processes. And also, I would like to say that the main promoters that are developing the main renewable energy industries are the same promoters that have been causing the CO2 releases, and they were contributing to climate change, and now they are the same actors in the new paradigm. So people realize that the same are doing other process, but without the local participation. So we are more conscious, scientists, ecologists, and people from rural sectors are struggling against that, you know. And also, I think that most of you are, from other countries, not from Galicia, but you should know that Galicia, in the Spanish context, and I don't know if I could say in the European context, but in the Spanish context, Galicia, you know, is the country. For me, is a country. For us, is a country. Is the territory with the lower percentage of surface under environmental protection. You know, the proportion of environmental land under environmental protection here is the lowest in the Spanish state. That means, and you know that this is not a poor country from an environmental point of view. We have many ecosystems with huge values, and we must protect them. But that means that if this is the line, so in the first stage, the option to place wind farms in places with a high environmental value were allowed. You know, now is not allowed. but in the first stage was allowed. But that means that now, currently, they are allowing to put wind farms in the border of the places where are under environmental protection. But here, this line divides the ecosystems with environmental protection of ecosystems without environmental protection, but it's the same ecosystem, you know, and environmental groups are struggling against this issue also. No? So we need more land under this legal protection. No? So
Lucy, do you want to?
I did, but maybe give it to the floor first, but I'll afterwards, otherwise I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I think you actually already kind of talked about it. I was just reflecting about something that I was at this conference about just transition last year in Brussels, and they were speaking about how originally just transition came around workers, around community, and increasingly just transition has become a kind of the focus on businesses rather than actually local populations. And I mean, I think you already talked about it. It was just kind of going through my head throughout each of your presentations about how so much increasingly, just transition becomes for businesses rather than long-term jobs, what you were just speaking about, or like the land or the territory and stuff. Yeah. So it was more a reflection. And I mean, if you want to expand on it, I'm sure it'd be interesting, but yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like it's become one of those discourses that starts off as, I was just saying this to Mario yesterday, there's a development studies author called Jan van Pieterzee. You probably read him, actually. But his whole thing was yesterday's alternatives are today's institutions. And I think Just Transition is a really good example of that it starts off being, I mean, it did start off in the labour movement. And it also wasn't necessarily entirely related to, because like with Xavier's presentation, that diagram that had the circle with greenhouse gas emissions and the eye is just focused only on that. Actually, it's about loads more things. And just transition, I think, was kind of accounting for that. But now it's become a buzzword and it attracts funding as well. It's good for corporate social responsibility. It makes the company look like they care. It's kind of it's a bit related to the CSR dynamic, I think. And I think that's also partly because it is something that is a bit under definition. It is something that kind of needs to be adapted and defined in each context. So it is also a term that is at risk of being co-opted.
Hi. Thank you so much. It was really interesting. I found in particular the tensions that each of you raised as being rooted in historic context really interesting. And I have a kind of reflection and a question which isn't about wind, which you might not be able to answer, but I'll ask it anyway. One is that my partner, his family in South Africa don't sell their energy back to the grid because of the distrust of the state. So it's kind of that kind of opposite thing. And the question about wind is that are people building their own windmills in Galicia, kind of bottom-up technology? And given this kind of idea around technology as being relevant to its cultural context, I was wondering if they're restoring any water mills as small-scale producers of energy as a kind of more relevant technology for Galicia than the wind.
Any other? Poonam? Let's collect one more. Galicia used to be a very full of micro hydro systems. In Nayarit we used to have 2, and then they are shut. Sorry.
Snatching them out. Hi, thank you so much, guys. I have questions more to Xavier because I can very much relate to the case study that he has done with my case study in India on biofuels and how the responsibility of taking care of the environment is now put on the most vulnerable community, which are, I mean, in no position to negotiate these terms. And you were talking about the compensation. And it's the same situation in India when the biofuel companies are getting lots of money through selling, and of course a lot of support from the state to produce bioenergy, but the farmers are supposed to give their straw for free because they're causing environmental damage by burning the straw. So, I mean, it's related to the case of air pollution that has been in international news because farmers are burning the straw in the field apparently, and it's causing environmental harms and also harms to the citizens. So they are being blamed as the culprit. So I wanted to ask if that is something also emerging in your situation in Galicia, where local communities are held responsible to take care of everybody in the country or even in the world, and are not, I mean, compensated for that. But also, if there is a narrative emerging from the local community that counters that position, of course, they say that they are not being compensated, but that is not taken far along, and that results into a limbo in which nothing is happening. At this moment, with air pollution and the biofuel situation, everything is in a state of staticness, and nothing is happening. Farmers are being constantly put into pressure to comply to the state through persuasion or through legal means. So I just want to know what's happening in your situation.
Okay, so about the mechanisms, I think that here the wind farms and the renewable industries related with renewable resources are considered of public interest. That means that an external actor, a big company or a multinational company can come to the rural area and say to you, hey, I am going to put a wind farm here, a turbine here. Do you want it or you don't want it? So your answer could be no. I would like to protect this place because it has cultural values, or it is part of my family for long centuries, and I would like to conserve it for those reasons. So, but this is not possible because if the government said that the wind energy is of public interest, that means that they can take it not free, but almost free, because the first option that promoters has is to expropriate the land. When they expropriate the landowners only obtain a yield only once, and the price is established not related to the value, to the energy value that this land has for the promoters. The value is decided related with the use that this land had previously. It was a grazing land or it was a forest land. The value that you are going to obtain is from this kind of the previous use. So this is an unfair decision, but unfortunately is the common decision in Galicia and around Spain, because we have an expropriation law that is from 1954. In 1954, here in this place, the people was killed. Related with their thoughts, you know. So this is the same law working 70 years later. So we can change it, sure, and we didn't need to change the constitution, the Spanish constitution. Only the politician decision to change it. But so far the things are running in this way. So, but this is not always the decision. This is not always the solution, because many times an agreement among the local owners and the local community and the promoters happen. When this happens, the outcome for local community Can be good, can be neutral, or can be bad. You know, it depends on the social responsibility of the promoters, because the promoters are in a prevalent position, you know, because they threat local people saying, if you don't accept this agreement, I can expropriate you. So this is a good agreement, you know, because they take the offer that they do, or the expropriation can be running. So, and when the bad, we also find several agreements or several cases where the decision between the promoters and local communities are enoughly good, you know, and not to change the structural tendency of the rural areas. I am thinking about the population decrease, the enough quality of life related to public services, not to change this global tendency, but to improve smoothly the local conditions of life. And normally, these kind of agreements or these kind of mechanisms are related to the power installed or the land occupied, you know, and a payment for each square meter or so on. And there are other general mechanisms to compensate. For example, in Galicia exists the wind canon eólico, a wind royalty that is paid for promoters to avoid the landscape impact. Is defined in this way, to avoid the landscape impact, and they pay an amount per year related with the number of turbines. You know, so many turbines, higher is the fee. Okay, so, and this is, I am not sure that this is a good measure to avoid the impact, the landscape impact, because now, currently, and related with the technology, we have all the Galician wind farms are old, because the small average of power per turbine is one is the lowest in Spain. Is the average turbine power in Galicia is the third lower, only higher than Canary Islands and Baleares Island, you know, where the wind is working in faster, you know. So because and the reason is that the wind energy project development in Galicia was happening in the beginning of the 90s, in the last of the 90s, when the technology now is this technology is obsolete. It's obsolete. Okay, so now we are the promoters are placing turbines that with a height of 200 meters. And in the Barbanza Peninsula or in the north of Lugo, the turbines are less than 80 meters. You know, so we have this is the technological change. The technological change was not is happening now, but the wind farms in Galicia are old in this from the technological point of view.
But did you find any case of self-construction of turbines?
Excuse me?
Self-construction, because Sofia was asking about self-construction.
Yeah. And the industry related to the wind farms, the technology is from Denmark, is from Germany, is from from other parts of Spain, because in Navarra, for example, there was a good industry, a competitive industry of renewable energy, but not from. We bring the technology and we install the technology that other produce. So our main competitive issue is related with the available resources. We have a huge amount of renewable resources when we speak about wind or when we speak about water, about rivers. You know, so we have. This is our advantage, but this advantage was not useful to change our quality of life. So where we are producing, we don't have a local industry that was fed from this available and cheap, very cheap energy. You know, the grids are global grids, and this energy, this historical energy from the rivers, historically, and now from the mountains, taking advantage of the wind, is being used above all to produce jobs and employment and investment in industry in other places. I would like to have, we would like to have an industry and competitive industry related to renewable resources, but we don't have it. We only have natural resources, cheap, very cheap. And this allow to build an extractive model. You know, this is an extractive model with all wars, because it wasn't the first. It is not the first time, because also with the Franco dictatorship, we suffer the most important resource extraction. That it was related with the forest. You know, we had and we have a common forest, a very important common forest, and in the 40s of the last century, almost 700,000 hectares were expropriated for the state, for the Spanish state, to feed an industrial sector. Not here, but in other places. And this could be not a problem, because the market mechanism, this other mechanism, no? the market share with all of us the benefits that the promoters obtain, the private owners obtain. You know, but in this case, the market. So Galician people, had to go to Catalonia, had to go to Madrid or to Europe to obtain employment, you know. So this extraction process is in the roots of the capitalism, and some places like this has the opportunity to play the role of give cheap resources, raw materials for others, and we bring their technology to produce that. So it's an unjust solution, and we try to, and the post-growth lab exists to try to define options to this injustice.
You call us a number of times degrowth lab, which is not bad for me. I wouldn't complain, but we are heading towards the ends, and you have to leave. I know, Xavier. Maybe I have my last question. I don't know if there are other comments, questions. No? My question is, you have a question?
Well, my question was about when you said the interests in coal are the same interests in wind. Who are the interests?
I think, I don't want to explain, but I think that you were mentioning the fact that they are the same companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
The same company that are installing the wind farms are the company that historically had power plants like coals or oil, gas.
And who?
The same, Repsol. You
Well,
want the name?
And the big, we have 5 big companies.
Okay.
In the energy sector.
Endesa?
Repsol is no, but Endesa.
Okay.
Endesa, and Endesa was a public Spanish company, but the Spanish government decided to sell it, and now is a public Italian company. No, this is the reason because Mario is here. It's a joke. Endesa, Naturgy. Many people said Naturgy is a Galician company. Naturgy, the former Fenosa, was a Galician company 100 years ago, but now is a multinational company. Is the second. Iberdrola is the third. All of them, but 5. No? And Repsol is the fourth, and the last one is EDP. EDP is, in this case, EDP Eléctrica de Portugal is a Chinese company. The Communist Party is the owner of this company. But it's good because this is good for the market, but it's not good for us. So these 5 companies were behind the fossil model, and the same. They keep interest in the fossil model, of course, but nowadays they are in a transition process to renewable sector.
Yeah, so probably they will enjoy the benefits of the transition. Okay, so my question is, there is no doubt that we need to lead to a different model who will imply the abandonment of fossil fuels. Some people talk about energy community, some people talk about like bigger systems. Let's focus on energy community. That is one of the solutions that is more popular among post-growth, degrowth supporters. And usually, energy community implies the deployment of either solar panels or micro hydro or micro wind. But we are not talking about low, at least not always low-tech technology. We are always talking about mid or high-tech technology. So, because we have a project that is called Just Transition to Circular Economy, and specific work packages looking at the global value chain of how things are produced. So we want to not only to discuss how to close the loop of production, which is the idea of circular economy, but also talking about who are the people who are involved in this production. And when you analyze this circular economy initiative, but also like community energy, for example, initiative, you discover often that they are depending on technology like silicon, for example, solar PV panels, solar panels, photovoltaic panels, that are embedded in a global chains that is supported by its very complex industrial systems, because silicon cells, for example, silicium, at the moment, the only way that we know how to, the way to produce and manufacture silicon wafer is through coal. So we are using coal to produce that. Also microchip and all this industry. So for me, it's a big paradox. And I would like to know what is your opinion and what are the potential solutions for post-growth society? Because in a way or another, we will have to deploy infrastructure that are highly dependent on a number of factors that we cannot control locally. We need rare earth, for example, minerals. We need lithium for batteries. We need know-how. So we need R&D, knowledge, patents that are not easily available. So even though if we want to create our own wind farms, like as Sofia was suggesting about self-production, self-manufacturing, grassroots kind of technology, in a way or another, we will depend on huge global supply or production chains. Okay, very quick because we have less than 10 minutes. You want to?
Sure. So your question was, what's the solution to this?
Oh, what do you think about this? How do you envision the future of?
So I think, first of all, I think that not enough people know this. This information isn't enough in the public domain. There's a massive discourse around. I mean, the EV. I'm just thinking of electric vehicles in the UK, which is like part of a very flimsy net zero strategy. And there's all of this talk about electric vehicles as a kind of panacea, and there's very, very little discussion around supply chains, human rights abuses in the supply chains, where cobalt comes from, where lithium comes from, how silicon is made, etc., etc. And then there's also very little, there's limited consideration of what do you do with waste at the end of the value chain. There's very limited or very little emphasis on companies that are involved in because as you say, there's such a chain of companies involved in the manufacturing process of the various different components that then might come together as a solar PV panel or an electric vehicle or some kind of decentralized assemblage, and there's very little obligation for recycling, reuse. I'm not really sure where we're at with lithium batteries, but I don't think there is a way to recycle, or maybe there is now, I'm not sure. So I think having a much stronger public information campaign. It sounds very simple, but I think it's really important, and I think there's quite a lot that is done to not shine a light on that, and then also to try and introduce some kind of regulation. Not that regulation necessarily does very much, but something that forces companies and governments to take much more responsibility for end of life at the end of the chain. So, for example, in the UK, there's a lot of electrical waste and solar waste that's just exported to Ghana and various parts of the world. That very rarely gets a kind of airing in public. Companies are let off from having to be responsible from this. So perhaps things like the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, which had its that had its extreme limitations, but that kind of thing, I think, can go some way. But a solution is massive, and it does require a whole societal and economic revamp. But also, I think that there's also a lot of kind of idealistic hope around energy communities, and I think a lot of the original proponents of this are now very wise to the kind of environmental and human rights externalities, abuses, violations, depending on which discipline you're coming from. But I think there needs to be a lot more focus on that.
Okay, very quickly. Very quickly. Like the first thing is we have to move away from the colonizing environmental discourse. Environmental discourse has been colonized that we only talk about the symbolic values and we forget the materiality of all this discourse. So the materiality of the discourse need to be brought in while looking for solution. So as Lucy was mentioning, like from the production to the consumption to the end use, all need to be thought not only in symbolic terms but also in material terms. So where are the raw materials coming, how it is being used, and then finally where they are ending. Just one example, many of the solar panels which are being installed in India, after they become redundant, many of them are being exported to other African countries as again the energy or environmental solution for green transition. So it has failed in one context, but then you are again selling it as an environmental solution for other contexts. So I think first of all, we need to decolonize this whole environmental discourse where we too much emphasize on certain normative values and then we ignore the overall material aspect of this whole transition, which I don't see happening that much.
Only to add that we need to decentralize the process, we need to decentralize decisions. We need to believe that local systems and local communities can manage all our decisions, not global systems, and we need the technology that is that allow to decentralize and to create a new environment, a new production and consumption system focused on local communities. And this technology, in the perspective, in the traditional concept of technology, exists. This technology, and we need social innovation, more social innovation, that technology innovation, to create this new world. And I use many times this: no one size solution fit all. So optimal solution, different optimal solutions for many real situations, not one solution. And the second one is that business as usual model. We have to go forward of the business as usual model. We need to think, and you do it in the lab. No? And last week we had a workshop, and a person that came from Navarra, he is engaged in a huge energy community process in Navarra. In Navarra, there are almost 300 energy communities. In Galicia, there isn't one, okay, connected to the grid. So, and he said, first we have to create community. After, we will produce energy. So, we need, the first step should be, I think, create community. When the community grows, no, so we can begin to think, to build how to feed people, how to produce energy, how to take care of all people, how to share between people the basic services and so on. First, we have to create community. After that, we will produce goods and services. Okay.